Press record. All right, guys. So yeah, this is weird. Checking homework on a Friday. It's not right. Next week we'll get back to like normal schedule. So on Monday we'll discuss the production of Disney's Hercules and the choices made while adapting an ancient myth, and what led them to that point. We'll talk about the Disney Renaissance, starting with Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast, and kind of go from there. Then we'll talk about more Chapter 18 because I feel like you guys didn't learn it too well when I talked about it on Tuesday, and even today we probably can only do so much to kind of like practice the passive voice, which is what this chapter is. We'll talk about Vesta and Hestia. We'll do Sententia Antiqui spot translating on Tuesday, which will be a good day for you guys to fill out your second word chart, which we do next Friday. Weekly word log, vocab log, WVL. Then you'll have Wednesday. So guys, the homework you did for today, you're just going to do number 6 and 10 through 10 for next Wednesday, right? You did 1 through 5 for today, 6 through 10. They feel kind of boring for it to be the same set of sentences, but we're going to hold off on the Lecciones until the week before the translation quiz. Maybe we'll finally do Jeopardy again on Thursday, and then we'll have a Chapter 18 and 17 vocab quiz. This is the last time I'm having to combine like things, like chapters, and then we'll just be on 18 after that. And it will have a first declension spot as well. Did anybody actually take me up on my suggestion to write out the first declension endings? And we're able to actually do it. Just Lucy, Sarah, and Danny? I know. Prudence? What? You have a question? Not Sarah. I guess. What, can you like use the sync or something? I guess. Okay, that's next week. And this is this week. All right. Don't forget about Chapter 17. I feel like we did Chapter 17 real dirty for the 1.5 people. You will continue to see Qui-Quad, and it'll come back in Chapter 19 a little bit, 1.5 kids. So you'll get more practice with it. We'll find out you can ask questions with these words too. Like, who did this? Or like, which student did that? But for now, just kind of know that if you see it, hopefully you recognize that it's coming from Qui-Quad, and that these words will be translated as either who, which, or that, or whose, or of which, or to whom, or whom plus an adjective, or that plus an adjective, plus a preposition. And that might not sound simple at all, but like, think of who, which, and that. And sometimes I'll be genitives, I'll be whose, and sometimes I'll be accusatives, I'll be whom instead of who. But it's really not actually that bad. The genitives and the datives with all pronouns have weird endings, IUS or genitive. But after that, they actually start to look like what they are. Accusatives and ablatives specifically, I mean. Elena? Indeed. Okay, this is the Chapter 17 vocab. So part of us doing Chapter 17 dirty was that we haven't taken the vocab quiz on it yet, right? Y'all took a Chapter 16 and 15 vocab with a Chapter 17 sentence. That was weird. So we have to lump this in and not forget about it with the Chapter 18 vocab. So Qui-Quad is its own word. Tychus is an adjective that never comes up. I think it comes up once in one of these sentences. Levis is one of those third declension adjectives we've got in Chapter 16. We get words like Wingardium Leviosa from it. Out is a new conjunction. If there's two of them, the first one will be either, the second will be or. Quito is quickly, doesn't show up too much, but I like it. Bookway is also, maybe two. Let's just say also. And then we got some verbs. Admito is just like, we get like 7 clones of mito, mitra is to sin. We end up getting like admito, and I can't think of any other ones. Amito, which is like to lose or die. This is to like more like admit or receive. Just go with admit probably. And then we get other ones. Koipi is always perfect tense. So it always means began. It'll never be begins. Incipio can be present tense like begins. Cupio is kind of like amo amare. Deleo, delay, we think of delete, it means to destroy. And desidero, we saw before in stories, means to desire. That one's easy. And these are the actual Chapter 18 vocab words. I won't dwell, but let's see. You get really comfortable with genus, generis as origin or type, because we start to get all these weird G nouns in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So we get gens, gentis, clan, like after this. I think the verbs are important here. Flow, flare to flow, Lego to read. My 9th grade 9A kids can never remember Lego Legger for some reason. Think of legislation. That doesn't help. Think of legibility, right? Legible and legibility.
Legos.
Maybe Legos. I don't know. Yeah.
Do you like pick out Legos?
Yeah, you do pick out yeah. The weird thing is that like read and pick out are pretty different things. So I don't know how you're supposed to link those in your mind. Miscaos to mix. It starts to look like mix in the 4th principal part, but y'all won't mess with the 4th principal part until Chapter 19. That's when that finally happens. Moveo is to move. Easy. Videor is just the passive of video. So not to actively see, but to be seen, aka usually it's going to be seem. All right, passive voice. Describe in your own words, Sarah, the passive voice. I guess. And that was always a mystery when I first taught the 2.5 kids in here. It's really not actually that bad. But they had, and we'll see if they continue to have a lot of trouble with it. So will someone like Sarah, who's reading a novel, be able to learn it? Who knows? If she did, that'd be like straight up wildly impressive. What are you doing? You're doing what? You tried while reading? So she can't even form sentences because she's so distracted. So R is toward more, mini, and toward, that's the chart down there. We unfortunately have all three tenses, or all three like normal tenses, but they're pretty easy to distinguish. I won't dwell on it. Let's just see if you guys are actually able to, like, I don't know, hang with these passive verbs. And that, so we talked about the person, number, and tense of verbs. We already had like three, what's the word, like factors or like parameters for a verb. This is the fourth one. Actually, yeah, we had mood too. We don't talk about mood too much, but normal verbs are like indicative, whereas commands are imperative. Now we have voice. So that's 5 different parameters by which to measure a verb and like describe a verb. And up till now, all the verbs were active. They had an active voice. Now they are passive. Has McCullis or anyone talked to you guys about avoiding the passive voice in essays? Okay. When I was a kid, I never understood that. I was like, what is that? And people would explain to me, I'm like, I still don't get it. So I guess I can relate to it when y'all have trouble with this. But it's like, instead of saying, I argue that Martin Luther King was a foundational member of the civil rights movement. That's active. I actively argue a direct object. Versus like, it has been argued that, like, that's weaker. It's literally weaker because has been verb is the definition of passivity. Passivity. Yeah. All right. So yeah, subject is verb or direct object up until this point. Now the passive verb is passive. Subjects are verbs. And there will be no direct object. There are no direct objects in a sentence with a passive verb, or at least a clause. There are infinitives as well, and we will see the ablative of means or agent translated as by. So when you see on, it'll be like by this ablative. I was a verb by this ablative. All right, you can read number 1. I think the light is a little bright in here. How about whoever wants to punch the lights on just a little bit while we open some natural light. Alyssa, go ahead with the reading though. Good. Yeah, maybe just like a couple times each, Lucy. Do anybody want to share the translation of this one? That's pretty good. I like that. It starts to get so dark, like it does something weird in my eyes, or like if it gets too dark. I mean, Alyssa and then Cammy. What do you, Alyssa?
I didn't finish the translation, but I got many
Good. And so you're close, but yeah, we need to make this passive. That's the whole point of the chapter. It is more difficult, easier said than done. We do start with many. These can't go together, and it's actually really hard to tell why. I don't know the gender of mors mortis, but say if Mulkey was going with it, it would need to have an ablative first and second declension ending. So it'd be basically a long A or a long O. But anyway, that's kind of hard to track. But you got a good start there. Let's hear Cammy and then Sadie. Well, just because Sadie's formal 1.5, let's hear Sadie first. Sorry, Sadie, go ahead. Frightened of death? Did you say are frightened? Became. So you overcomplicated a little bit, but you did get close to the passive voice. So good. This one's actually kind of weirdly weird. It's like short, but there's enough weirdness that it's weird. And 2.5 kids, I feel like y'all should just remember it. But Cammy, what'd you get? Death was feared excessively by many. Okay, good guess. So let's see. Death can't be the subject because it's from mors mortis. And guys, you should be on the second side of your weekly vocab log, writing down any of these words that you're not 100% on, So that's every 1.5 kid, and yeah, a little less than 2.5. But everyone should be doing that. You shouldn't be reading. You shouldn't be zoning out because this is when the textbook gets straight up nasty McNasty style. But like, it gets fun. Like this is when, to me, the Latin is like straight up. Anyway, so don't let it like pass you by, and you're just all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm 3 chapters into into the hard part of the textbook, and what is the subject here, anyone? What's the subject? The verb will help us know for sure. It's a weird subject a little bit, Alyssa. It is just multi, yeah. So when that happens, we see multa sometimes as an accusative, like I do much, I verb much. Here it is as a subject. That's the nominative plural, masculine long, I. And then for us to like confirm that, let's look at our verb. Now it is passive, okay? I won't like be like, what voice is it, anyone? It's passive, right? It's got one of these newfangled endings. This is the chapter about passive verbs. A sentence without a passive verb is kind of wasting our time a little bit unless they're making a fraction of vocab. But those passive, that's fine. But what person and number is it? Let's make sure we can still tell what person and number it is. So Keaton or Luke, what person and number is Terentor? I like that y'all have hoods on so that if Miss Moore decides to like drop in for no reason, I look like a clown. Not second plural. It is third plural. So that's still the same NT we know and love from third plural since chapter 1. That hasn't changed. It just now has this weird, what should look like a new passive ending attached to it. So it's many. Since many is nominative plural, then yeah, that can be your subject. It agrees with the third plural passive verb. So it's not, if this was multi and then at the end it was terrent, which would be many scared, many terrified, many actively terrified. But since it's passive, who can translate for me? Sadie and Cammie were close. But many not scared, but many, we need to add at least one helping verb. Anyone? How do we make it passive? Braden? Huh? Not, I'm talking about what goes before scare. We might have to change scare a little bit. Daniel? Are scared. That's it. Yeah. So because it's third person, we use are apparently for third person. Part of the weird thing about passive, Sarah, are you checking this? Like, if you don't have something on your desk, I'd rather you just like leave the class or something. So what was I saying? You're having to use a helping verb, and it's to be. It's the verb be, and it's gonna have to be am, is, or are, depending on what person. If it's third, it's are apparently. If it's wait, I thought it was is. He is scared. No, okay, I see. If it's third plural, it's are. If it's third singular, it's is. If it's second singular, it's are. And if it's first plural, it's singular, it's what? I blank verb. I am. So anyway, that's weirdly the kind of hardest part about it is that you're having to either use am, is, or are, and that just it feels like anyway. So many are scared or terrified. What case is morta? It couldn't be nominative. So what case is it? Parker or Adrian? What case is morta? It's from mors, mortis, third to clench. Yeah. So what kind of ablative do you think? Ablative of, it doesn't have a preposition. We don't see cum or anything around it, so it must be means. But we're not going to use with. They're terrified with fear. It almost makes sense. When you have an ablative, it means with a passive verb. You don't use with plus the preposition. You use by. So okay, many are terrified by death. Even what kind of death? Faculty is removed from morta, but actually they can both be ablative. Even by what? Easy death. And nemis is like an adverb that modifies the verb here. So it's like two. They're too terrified. So anyway, I'll click through. Many are too terrified by even easy death. They're excessively terrified. And yeah, so passive verb, third plural, present tense passive. They still have tense. This is just good old present. If it was past, we'd have to use like they were terrified. If it's future, they will be terrified. Yeah. Any questions, comments, concerns, critiques, observances, observations? All right. Let's see. Oh, faculty. Faculty is kind of weird here. Y'all maybe didn't learn this word well in chapter 16's little summary week. But it means easy. Facile is actually an English word that like means easy. We wouldn't pronounce it that way in Latin though. But this is just to show you the weird thing about these is that third declension nouns a lot of times they have the end in the E and the ablative, like morte here. But for some reason these adjectives use long I for both the dative and ablative. So good luck with that, guy. Latin is a journey, I was reading Julius Caesar while y'all were testing yesterday, and like, it feels so good to be able to run your eyes across a sentence and you know exactly what it's. You're not having to sit there and translate it. I think a lot of people don't understand that about a language. Once you get really good at it, you're not actually translating it in your head and having to like run it. It's like those words are actually hitting your brain directly, and you understand it in terms of like on its own terms. But it does take you got to go through all this rigmarole just to get to that point, and it is hard to get kids like stoked about that. But hopefully, eventually, you guys will have some second, maybe not Latin, because I don't think you can count Latin as a second language, because it's dead. Does anybody in here have a second language? Like grew up speaking something? Prince, German is sweet.
My brother, his first language was Spanish. Like he went to this preschool and he wouldn't talk at all. He just would whine, and then his teachers would teach him Spanish. And my mom tried to teach him English again, and she struggled because whenever she tried to give him something, he'd be like, "Oh yeah, rojo."
Oh, weird, huh? Wait, but like, where was he that he was getting Spanish at
It was
school?
it was this preschool up in Black Forest.
Oh, and then okay, huh? That's cool. Brutus, do you still speak German at home? Not really, but you like know it, or you're.
I know a bit.
That's a challenge. Like if your family, like if you're like the older people in your family know a language, but then you're like in America, it's like, well, we don't technically need to use it. But anyway, those are the kind of things like if you knew at one point when you're a kid, you can probably pick it up real easy. Anyway, who can read number 2? Dieta memoria amicitiarum dopium numquam delebitur. Deleo deleri is new, to destroy, but otherwise this is a super straightforward sentence. Kind of, yeah. Anybody want to translate it? Lucy? Yeah, very good. Okay, I'll just click through on this. Well, okay, I guess I'm showing y'all. So, surprise, surprise, this is passive. It has the same TUR ending as the last one. It's not NTUR because it started singular this time, but it's not just passive, it's also future passive. So that BI should still jump out to you in the same way it should for like an active verb from the first and second to clinch. Most of the future ones are formed with this BI. This guy's kind of weird, and we get the bunch cake, of course, but the other, well, at least 3 of them have BI plus the same passive ending for present tense verbs. So it's just will be verb. In this case, will, and then there's numquam here, negating it, will never be destroyed. And then, yeah, I left out the part that Lucy didn't. I mean, Marie, of sweet friendships. That should be plural. That should be plural. What if there was no never here, and the sentence was just the happy memory of sweet friendships will be destroyed? That would be something. That would really be something. Right. Number 3. Who can read? Any questions on this one? Y'all think it was like noticing the tense of these passive verbs is weird? Sadie, how are you feeling about passive voice? Well, yeah, so this is like, I wouldn't describe this as like the hardest thing at this point in the textbook. I think the hardest thing has still probably at this part of the textbook is like all the pronouns that you get. But yeah, so okay. What if I have the sentence, I devour the hamburger? Devour is active there, Sadie. Could you make that passive? It'll sound weird. It sounds like somebody's getting attacked by a monster. Not I actively devour the hamburger. You might need to leave out hamburger. Or you can make hamburger the adjective of agent. No, did won't be the thing we use. Can anybody follow me? This is a weird concept to not have a PowerPoint slide for. But like, what? How do we make that passive? Anyone? Not I devour, but I. No, so we need a helping verb. No, we don't want to make it perfect tense, huh? Yeah, I am devoured, maybe by the hamburger. So yeah, so it's just interesting. Sometimes when you're a Latin teacher, it's like you lose sight of like what is hard versus what is easy. Anyway, I'm not saying passive voice is easy, but like obviously I just demonstrated that you aren't all able to immediately. Like Parker was kind of thinking of tense more than voice. Anyway, And yeah, did. That's also a tense thing. Did is a tense thing. You're having to use a helping verb like is, am, are, plus the simple past version of the verb. Am verb. Instead of I actively teach, I am taught. That's passive at that point. Anyway, we'll keep working on it. Brayden, how do you feel about passive voice? Okay. Caden, what do you think? I don't know that's going to happen. Adrian, how do you feel about passive voice?
It's okay. Like a 6 or 7 out of 10.
It doesn't really blow your mind too much. So just in a vacuum. So loud out box. That'd be I praised. Let's make it passive without even worrying about the rest of this massive thing. Oh my god. So a 1.5 kid or a 2.5 because I feel like y'all are still doing it. We're all on the same page. But so loud out box. That's active. That's I praised. Now loud out box tour is passive. How do we make it? And I'm sorry, it's third. So it's he praised. Now how do we make it passive? Not he actively praised, but he. What helping verb did you use? Yeah, it is because this is bator. It's actually perfect. So. And this is Prudence talking, or okay, I couldn't tell if it was Prudence or this. No, we don't have perfect passive yet. We'll get perfect passive soon, and it'll be so scary. And then we'll have to use things like has, been, verb, but just was or were. He was praised. So y'all follow that? Andrew, how do you feel about that? Like this is active. He praised. Make it passive by adding this new passive ending. He was praised. Do you see what is happening there, or are you kind of like I don't see what's happening? Okay. Because if he praised somebody, it's probably a direct object. There's probably a direct object in the sentence. He praised the student, the stipulum, whatever it is. But if he is or was praised, depending on the tense, then the verb is happening to him. There's no direct object at that point. If anything, there's an ablative of agent or means. Okay, that woman, what kind of woman? That blind woman. Interesting. Also, intellexit. Chloe or Alyssa, what tense is intellexit? From intelligo, intelligere, to understand, intellexi. And well, not present. It looks like it's present, but what about that X? If it was present, wouldn't it have just the G and then like an IG? So the X, Chloe? Yeah, this is like perfect. Yeah, so it's like understood as opposed to understand. So anyway, that blind woman, and hopefully I'll follow that. It's like this is one of the very obvious ones where if you have the dictionary in front of you at least, you see that X, and you're saying it in the form, you know it's at least one of the perfects. This is a perfect. And that blind woman also understood omnia genera artium, all types of art. And we already did this. She doesn't praise something. Anyone? It's imperfect because of BA. So don't use is, but was praised. Was praised. Ab amicis. This just means sweet. She was always praised by the sweet friends. Yeah, Eucundus is horrible. I feel like it doesn't show up too much, and then when it does, we're all like, what is that? But that's Eucundus. It's sweet. So that is an ablative of agent. Ablative of agents will get the ob or the ah, whereas means might not get any preposition, because that's what ablative means is. But it would still be translated with by. So yeah, there's that happening. Okay, I'm gonna make it to my chicken salad sandwich, and then I'm gonna go to Wendy's too, and I also have a salad in the fridge. I'm really hungry. Okay, senex if senex is all by itself, it means like an old man. But if it's next to another noun, it might be an adjective, actually just meaning old. So the old dad, or your old dad, because there's best there, y'all's old dad. And then, oh my gosh, we got a relative clause. The editors are friendly in that they put commas in there. A quo cite iuabamur. So iuabamus. I can't cover anything up. If this was an S, though, that would be we helped. We were helping. How do we make that passive? Anyone. 2.5 kids, anyone. Not we helped actively, because there's a you are passive. But we, were helped. Let's forget about have and has. Let's get have and has out of our minds for a little while. Yeah, we want to use were. We were helped because it's past tense. If it was present, it'd be we are helped. So anyway, your old dad, aqua, remember, is the same as ab. So by That? Which? Who? Oh, your old dad by whom we were often helped. Okay, that's how that works. So that has a lot of chapter 17 and 18 just like packed in to just the first two clauses. Quo is a relative pronoun whose antecedent is what? Anyone out loud? What? Anyone out loud? Huh? The dad, yeah. So that's all that's been introduced so far. I mean, that's typical, even though there's some adjectives kind of buffering. Often, like, the antecedent will be like almost right next to the relative clause. To me, this is basically right next to it. Because adjectives, like, don't count. They just take a space. And then, like, okay, what's the rest of our main clause? What did your old dad do? For that, I'm just going to skip to the end here. Coipit is this new verb that means, like, began. And it'll take an infinitive, apparently. Began to... He often began to... Oh, no, they're not often. He just began to speak. Maybe, let's speak. Or maybe say. And the reason I'm saying say is because I think your direct object is also... So you would like say much, maybe? Day. And this is weird. Caleribus is just like swift or fast. You would say much about swift danger. What is in Gintus Maris, anyone? Huh? In what case is it, Lucy or whoever can tell? It's not going with Caleribus Periculus. Caleribus Periculus are both ablative plurals from different declensions, and Gintus Maris are both third declension. Yeah, so it's like the swift dangers of like the huge sea or ocean. Yep, I brought up the slide on the relative clause again, but I feel like we almost don't even need to know this is ablative. Just know that is by and like figure out that this is ablative as a background over an O or A. It's probably ablative. Anyway, I know I'm circling back there. But yeah, so the main clause is just your old dad began to say much about the dangers of the ocean. But they added in a relative clause, which just makes the whole thing like next level. It's your old dad, by whom we often were helped. But even saying that out loud, I'm like, that is correct grammar, but like, what if someone said that to you? What if you're like walking down the hall talking to someone with two classes, and they're like, oh, you know your dad by whom we once were helped, or were often helped? You'd be like, what's wrong with you? Why would you talk that way? Okay, last one, right? Our minds. That's another passive verb. Thank God they didn't waste our time with active verbs. So the verb all the way at the end, moveo, movere, is just to move. So our minds not move, but what? Sadie or maybe Callie or Sarah specifically, or Avery. Oh yeah, what are we gonna? Okay, so Avery, I'm gonna brainstorm this weekend exactly how we're gonna. I might just try to like make you a big packet that like sums up the 5 chapters that you're skipping, because this is probably wild for you. I just realized that. But it's cool. We'll catch you up. And that's what a lot of the kids in here did. They blasted through chapter 11 through like 17 in a month. And I think it worked really well. I'm getting results. Our minds not move, but anyone. Especially the 3 kids I knew. Daniel? Are moved, yeah. And keto is like quickly or swiftly. So it's not the minds actively moved. That would just be movent, right? Like our good old OST must just int. Now it's into you are to make it passive, so our minds are moved by what? I'm guessing they're moved by something. Anyone? By the looking for ablative, Parker?
Strong.
Yeah, by the or like strong is good actually. Or by a powerful memory, and then we have some genitives there of those 2 deeds. Again, please stop me if you wish me to gloss any words. Like type out the whole dictionary. Avery, would you? I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but we're kind of wrapping up. Is there any part of you that wants to be a computer kid? Probably not. You probably prefer not to be a computer kid. You wouldn't? Yeah, okay, yeah. Well, we'll figure it out. I'll just challenge myself to see if I can somehow condense all of chapter, like, yeah, it'll be 11 for you. You left off with 10. 11 through 17. I can do it. It's not that bad. What was the worst thing that got introduced? Like maybe the perfect tense. Perfect tense, a lot, like 50-ish words probably. And pronouns, a bunch of nasty pronouns. But the word pronouns were introduced right when you switched, Avery, and other 1.5 kids who aren't in here right now. Those personal pronouns, those are still probably the worst ones, the chapter 11 ones. But in chapter 14, you get all these reflexive and intensive. And, yeah. In 2 minutes, that's why I'm stalling now. But no, I am done. I'm going to read off your name if I didn't get a weekly word log from you last Friday, just so you can say, oh, no, I did show it to me. You're bad at writing things down. Or you can show it to me, and I can give you points for it. But this is still from the first one. And my standards are hyper low. I mostly wanted to see that y'all hung on to it. But everyone needs to be writing vocab words down. It's the only way you're going to ever be confident in Latin class. I was recording, right? Okay, good. I'm stopping now. Oh, my.